Hey everyone, it's Michael. I don't know why I'm a little cough needy. I don't know. Anyway, today we're going to be doing a video on the Deep Trouble series ranking for my opinions. The thing is, I read these books a while back, and I've read so many Goosebumps books since I read them a couple of months ago that I had to just kind of look through them and kind of get a grasp again on certain aspects I forgot, mainly in the second book. As much as I love the second book, and I forgot about so many things in it that really made me love that book so much. But yeah, the ranking video. This is a book video thing. We're going to talk about the 3 different books from the Deep series, Goosebumps book franchise, whatever. Of course, the first 2 books are in the original classic 62 book era from the 90s. And the third book is Creep from the Deep, which is from the HorrorLand series. I think it's book number 2, I believe. But anyway, there's not a whole lot to say with introduction for this. Basically, you have Billy and Sheena, and they are pretty much our protagonists, mainly our main character, Billy, throughout all 3 of the books. And I really like these 2 characters. They're brother and sister. They have an uncle named Dr. Deep. Dr. Deep is pretty cool. He goes by the nickname Dr. D. And a lot of these stories take place on the ocean, like over their laboratory boat thing that the uncle owns. It's typically during summer vacation. There's a lot of deadly, dangerous situations they get into in all 3 of these books. And I will say straight up, I think all 3 of the books are good. Especially one of them that I genuinely, well, 2 of them really, that I really, really love. But I would say all 3 of them, for the most part, are at least good books. And I recommend all 3 of them, easily. No question about it. It's not like the Monster Blood books that I did a series ranking on. Where some of those are really good, and some are just horrible, you know? I don't know why it took me so long to do the ranking video for this. I guess in the videos themselves I kind of already explained what I thought would be the general ranking for these. Maybe I came up with the ranking system afterward, I don't remember, but I wanted to do ranking videos in general for these particular books and monsters and series and stuff. But anyway, let's go ahead and start off with book number 3. What do you think it is? If you've seen the reviews, you probably already know. It is the first original Goosebumps Deep Trouble book. Good book, like I said. Essentially, there's a brother and sister who go on a... Basically, the brother comes across a particular creature after he and his uncle and his sister and the guy that helps the uncle on the boat, his name is Alexander, they decide they're going to try to find a specific creature that these guys that came on the boat are going to give the uncle $1 million to try to find and do some research and science stuff with. And it doesn't really go the way you think it would be. It's not really a scary story. It's got more of a sad feel to it, and a lot of that comes from the animal rights activist type stuff that's in the veins of this book, which is not inherently a bad thing. It's kind of annoying for politics reasons, but the book itself is good. I actually think it made me feel for certain parts of the story, certain characters in the story I really enjoyed. It's good, it's memorable, definitely, easily a memorable book. But that's book number 3 in my ranking. Now, what do you think book number 2 is going to be in the ranking? There's only 2 more left out of the 3. And that's one thing too, by the way, every time I do a ranking video, I'm going to recommend that they need to have at least 3 books in the series. They can't be like Night at Terror Tower where there's 1 book and then a Give Yourself Goosebumps book and you'd rank those 2. I don't want to do all that. But when it has 3 books and above, like Slappy, for example, Slappy has a lot of cameo books. I don't include cameos. I don't include adaptations of books already that are, well, I guess I did kind of in the Monster Blood video because I included the TV book. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I don't like to include a lot of the same stuff over and over again. I just want to talk about the main books that are always focused on just that one villain. And it kind of gets weird and wonky with the Slappy thing, because you have like the comics and stuff that focus on him too. You have the Slappy World books that some of the books are completely entitled and invested in him as a character and as a villain. And then some of the books in Slappy World are just kind of narrated by him, and that's it. He's not really involved in the stories, so it's going to be tricky trying to figure all that out. But I think I'm mostly just going to stick with, if I know the villain is supposed to be Slappy and the book advertises it that way, then it would be focused on them. Same with Deep Trouble. If it's a Deep Trouble book, obviously, Billy and Sheena, Deep Trouble underwater fights and attacks and stuff, that's all that really matters for a ranking video in my opinion. But anyway, book number 2, what is it going to be? It happens to be Deep Trouble 2, which is also book number 2 of the series. trilogy, whatever you like to call this. Deep Trouble 2, the reason I like this more than the first book is because I have a really bad fear of fish and the ocean and just creatures in the water. I don't know what it is about that, but it really gets to me. There are scenes in this book that if you have the same fear that I have of fish and water things, it's going to get to you really bad. I genuinely think Deep Trouble 2 will give you a scare that you've never felt as a person afraid of fish, you know? It'll mess with you. It's a really fun, adventurous, different kind of story. It doesn't feel like a Goosebumps book. It actually feels very, very different. Kind of like I said about Goosebumps 1 at the Haunted Mask that I talk about in almost every single video I've recorded on this channel. That book doesn't feel like Goosebumps, neither does this book. It's just really kind of weird to me that it feels this way. But Deep Trouble 2 is really good. I definitely recommend it easily. Very, very scary. Very much not for the weak-hearted and people that are afraid of fish. There's a scene with a hallway, and if you have read the book, you probably know what I'm talking about. That scene is probably one of the most horrific Goosebumps scenes I've ever seen in my life, and I will always remember it for that. Deep Trouble 2 is good. I can't believe people don't like this book. It really surprises me that people that are big fans of the first book don't like the second and third book for whatever reason. But anyway, with that being said, you can already guess what is number 1 on my series ranking for Deep Trouble. That would be HorrorLand number 2, Creep from the Deep. Creep from the Deep, I didn't even know it was going to be a Deep Trouble book until I happened to be looking at the backs, which is very uncommon for me. I was looking at the back of the book, and I saw Billy and Sheena's name, I saw Dr. Deep's name, then I realized the title is not Deep Trouble 3, which it should be in my opinion. It's called Creep from the Deep. And this is amazing. It is genuinely one of my favorite HorrorLand books. It's one of my favorite Goosebumps books. It is so scary. And it's not so much the portion that's attached to HorrorLand, because these books, the HorrorLand series, of course, for anybody who doesn't happen to know this, I'll go ahead and restate it real quick. After you read the main story that's about 100 pages long, the last 40 or 30 pages of the book itself are focused on a storyline that ties into the first book and the third book and so on, for a big story that takes place outside of the main story that you read called Creep from the Deep. So you have Billy and Sheena's adventure, then you have, after that story, like 30 or 40 pages directed to them being in Horrorland, the theme park, having to deal with a situation that's going on there in that world. But the main story for this book, I really, really like. For anybody who doesn't know the story of Creep from the Deep, essentially, you have Billy and Sheena and Dr. Deep hearing about this one-legged Ben thing, or Ben One-Leg, I think is what his name was. He was a pirate, and he and his ship and another ship had vanished into a black cloud one day, years and years and years before. And there may be buried treasure or something down underneath the water, so they go into a submarine. Now, the submarine sequence, just going under the water, just the three of them, is horrifyingly scary. And then the book gets more and more horrific. Like, it's one of the newer types of Goosebumps books that have violence, they have gore. Not super hardcore gore, like not blood splatters and stuff, but like a person's nose could fall off, you know, things like that. Just horrific things that can scar somebody from hearing about that. They happen in this book. Creep from the Deep is so exciting. It's such a fun read. If you're a fan of Deep Trouble and you haven't read Creep from the Deep, again, you can read it, the main 100-page story, without the extra Horrorland bit at the end of the book. And that 100-page storyline is fantastic. It's a really, really good read. I couldn't recommend it enough to you if you haven't read it before. But yeah, that's my Deep Trouble series ranking. What did you guys think about it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Put your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear everything you have to say, guys. Yeah, I want to do more of these ranking videos. I just haven't read enough of the books to be able to do that. And there's not many that have more than 3 books in a particular monster's filmography or whatever you'd like to call it, bibliography. I don't know what to call it. Doesn't matter. If a monster has more than 3 books, like I said, I will do a series ranking on it. But not when it's cameo performances and stuff. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. What are your thoughts? Put them down below. Thank you for watching. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today. And goodbye.